Povale hoʻi. Hanau tapo, hanau Kumulipo I ka pohe kane, hanau poele I ka pohe wahine.
Ai veli na kia waho ka ʻāina ka kua pau e noho I lalo. Mahalo. First and foremost, welcome to our beautiful Kumu, who have greeted us this evening with the opening lines of our mele, the mele of conversation for this evening, the Kumulipo. From within the darkness, everything is birthed, according to Hawaiian cosmogony. And here we are tonight to celebrate that genealogy of birthing that has brought us all here today. The genealogy of which we are all a part, the genealogy that reminds us that we are born into place and time and to people by way of our mothers, by way of our fathers, our kupuna, our ancestors, and from all living things born in what we know of the time of the Kumulipo. Thank you for making your way to this space, Thurston Memorial Chapel, at Punahou School, on the lands of Punahou, to join in this conversation, but more so to lend your presence to the validation that things, topics, these kumuhana of import, of significance, are worthy investments of our time in this day and age. Choosing with your feet to be here tonight, choosing with your cursors, for those of you tuning in on the live stream, shows that there are many, many people who stand shoulder to shoulder every day, who believe in the ʻike of our kupuna and the wisdom embedded with it, in the guiding of our work, of our mana'o, of our education, of our action, even still today. And so, to our President, Dr. Mike Latham, the Board of Trustees, those of you who have joined us here tonight, the administration of Punahou School, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us this evening. We'd like to thank our admin for supporting ʻike Hawaii on Punahou School's campus. We would like to thank our Kumu for bringing their expertise to our community. And lastly, we would like to thank all of you for choosing to be here this evening. This event tonight is a precursor to one that will be an epic performance of the Kumulipo on Sunday on the grounds of ʻIolani Palace. There's a feat that has been done before, but not for a long time. Maybe a once-in-a-lifetime event for those of us who will be present. But if not for the ʻIolani Palace and the people who steward that place, this event would not come to us. And so we have invited this evening, and we are honored to have with us the President and CEO of the Friends of ʻIolani Palace, whose job is great and whose Kuleana is heavy, but we know no one better to do that and to lift it than our very own Paula Akana. Mahalo, Paula, for joining us this evening.
Aloha kako. I'm honored to be here to talk to you a little bit about the decisions that were made to bring this magnificent presentation to ʻIolani Palace. When Kamuela and Mehana came to meet with me at the palace and talked about this, and Kamuela talked about being at the palace more than 20 years ago, nearly 30 years ago, when they did the Kumulipo. It was just, yes, we're going to make it happen. I don't know how we're going to make it happen, but we will. And there's a number of reasons why. On a personal level, I have loved the Kumulipo for more than 30 years. And it goes back to my classes with ʻike Crozier, with my baby in the back seat, knowing more of the words than I did, because he sat in class. And I have loved the Kumulipo from then on. From the standpoint of the palace, no better place to be presenting such a magnificent oli. For those of you who don't know the history of Kumulipo and the palace, the Kumulipo was published in 1889 by King Kalakaua. And then let's go forward in time to the overthrow of 1893. And then in 1895, some will call it a counter-revolution, others will call it a civil war, a lukolo. And it was during that time that the Queen was put on trial. She was found guilty of misprision of treason, that she knew that this civil war was going on or was going to happen. She was sentenced at the same time, all in the throne room of the palace. And then she was imprisoned upstairs in what we call the quilt room today. For 8 months, she stayed there. And if you're facing the palace, it's the second floor window right here. That's that corner room where she spent those 8 months. She had a chance to walk on the grounds, but chose not to because it was full of soldiers. But it was during that time that she took what her brother had published and translated it into English. And we always talk about how magnificent that is, how skillful it is. And to do it at the time of her birthday month is really a celebration of the skill and the knowledge of Queen Liliʻuokalani, her understanding of not only her kupuna and the past, but also her understanding of Western knowledge, to be able to translate this for us to hear and to understand today. But it also is just a magnificent celebration of indigenous knowledge. It is our creation. It is the creation that they teach now in STEM classes. It's the creation of what that science talks now, but indigenous knowledge, we knew it a millennia ago. And it was just a no-brainer for us. We are so honored to be able to be the venue and work with this terrific group, these magnificent kumu'oli, in bringing their haʻawina to chant the entire Kumulipo. And I can't tell you how excited our staff has been to put it together, but more importantly, how excited we are to be able to welcome the community to come, especially with what's going on in the world today, what's going on in Hawaii today, and the challenges that some of our trusts face. It's really the right time. It's the right place, and we are forever honored to have been asked to host the Kumulipo there. I hope that we'll see you there. If not, we know it'll be live streamed. But we're so looking forward to being there, and we're just very honored. And what we're trying to do at Iolani Palace is just to make the palace and the grounds more open for many of these cultural events. You know, when Kamuela did this in the late 1990s to now, just look at the thousands and thousands of people, the generations who now speak the language, write the language, and understand the Kumulipo. Mm-hmm. And it's just an excitement. And we just can't wait for Sunday to come. Anyway, thank you so much for letting me just share a little bit about the palace and why we're just really happy to be part of this presentation. Aloha.
Oh, yeah. Mahalo nui. Mahalo nui e Paula. She has to run, so we'll see her kind of disappear out. But please, one more round of applause for Paula Arcana. And all that she does really over there at Iolani Palace to malama that space so that we, the general public and Hawaiians have a space at the palace. That's no small task that she carries on her shoulders, so mahalo nui. If you know anything about these kumu, if you Googled them maybe before you came tonight or read a little bit about their bio, you know that we could sit here for the next 5 hours, maybe 5 days, and we would not run out of things to talk about or ʻike to share. So we're going to jump right into it. And we are going to begin, I would like to ask our panelists really to start with introductions. How would they like us to know them? What is it that they want us to know about who they are? But also, if you may tag on to your introductions, your engagement with this particular project and what the process has been like for you. And I think we'll start with you, Kamuela, since you kind of the OG Kumu with this thing.
I hope I'm the youngest one up here. Except my gray hair might be giving that away. Aloha, everyone. Aloha. So my name is Kamuola Chun. My father comes from the Alama family, and and my grandmother and my great-grandmother from the Kalahui family. My grandmother on my mother's side is from Kohala and from Waimea and from Waipio, and that's the Keawe Ehuf line. And so I'm proud to be able to represent them, both lines on my father's side and my mother's side tonight and this weekend. Yeah, I guess I am the OG because back in 19-something.
The olden days already done.
Yeah. You know, I was working for the university and I was asked to do some work here. At that time, back in 1996, a friend of mine asked, when I moved over here to work, a friend of mine asked me, Kamoala, can you teach us how to chant? And so we had some very humble beginnings then. We didn't have any space, so Mylan Myers was gracious enough to open up her doors at Native Books and Beautiful Things, and that's where we started. That's where we started the first Papaʻoli. Since that time, back, it was interesting because we knew the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education was coming up. And so I asked the group, what if we presented the Kumulipo at IPSI? And they kind of, they looked at themselves and it was like, But what happened then is that just from that, we were able to generate some interest, and so we got some people together, some instructors who were working at UH Manoa and a few friends got together, and took us about a year, went through everything that we could about the Kumulipo, and then we presented it at the WIPSIs. And that was interesting because that's the first time, to my knowledge, that it was done in that century. Prior to that, it was upon the deathbed of Ke'el Moku on this island where I believe Heva and another person presented the Kumulipo. And then prior to that, so that was for that century. Prior to that, in the 1700s, we know that it's been recorded that it was presented when Captain Cook arrived in Kealakekua and presented to him at Hikiauheiau. So we kind of felt, okay, before this century is over, we got to do it. And then the next century, 2000, we were invited to Maui to present it there. And so we started off, our group started off our century with the Kumulipo over in Maui. We were invited in 2003 to present it at Iolani Palace, which was wonderful because this was in honor of King Kalakaua's birthday. And it was interesting because we were up on the stairs and they had maybe 200, 300 chairs and it was all filled. Now, this weekend, we're looking at over 1,500 people there. And it's mind-blowing to think that just from that little seed to now, to where we're at now, the interest in the Kumulipo is tremendous because it teaches, and we'll talk about this, it teaches us a lot about relationships, about our ancestors and such. And so, I don't know, was that...
May kailo.
Okay.
Yeah, mahalo. We'll get more out of you in a bit. Mahalo. The idea of it being performed in each of the centuries, I think that's something for us to remember and to really think about. There's some research points there for those of you who want to go home and go do your homework. Okay, kekahi mai. Go jump in a pool?
Oh, I'm just going to jump.
Okay, may kailo.
It's the oldest to the youngest.
Aloha ahiahi kako. O wau noho I ʻōkalani uhiwa, no Maui mai au. Noho au I hilo I keia manawa, a he wahi mahalo ke ia o ko pakaia pau no ka hui ana ia nei ma ia lumine, ma o ina ethers, a ale wau ike. But yeah, aloha kako.
Aloha.
I'm Kalei Nu'uhiwa. I come from the island of Maui. Let's see, my dad, we are Napaipai and Nu'uhiwa. And we come from Front Street, where, if you know where Kamehameha Iki Park is, that's actually still our property. But it was taken away during World War II, and had the submarines and all that sort of thing. But anyway, sorry, not getting political, backing up.
More research points.
Yeah, more research. But my family actually comes from Nu'u in a place called Waiu, which is in an area of Kaupo. And so we have a lot of family members that lived in Kaupo and Hana, and we went back and forth in between there. So there's a lot of fond memories of those areas. And the Napaipai family actually traces back here to Oahu, eventually to the fish pond and Kuali'i. So yeah, very happy to be here. So, you can walk amongst your ancestors no matter where you go. Right. I'm very happy to be able to acknowledge Oahu in that way. What else? What? Okay, I work for the University of Hawaii at Palama Nui. I've had multiple jobs in conservation for many, many years. And I was once, back in the day, invited to be the keynote speaker at a marine biology conference. And I remember the woman coming up to me and saying, because these guys, right, it was right after Whipsy. And she said, oh, could you do the section that talks about the fish? Just like that. Because we're trying to integrate science into Hawaiian methodology, and we don't know how to do it. Her name was Franny Cooper-Smith, if anybody knows who that is. And so I said, okay, well, I saw these guys do it at Whipsy. Well, I saw part of it. And I thought, well, that looked real easy. Yeah, sure. And then I said, yeah, okay. And then I memorized Va'elua, all the fish, and I thought, what am I doing up here? And I made this whole PowerPoint presentation with all the fish and all the corals and all that, and they had no idea what they asked for. And then when it happened, they were all like stunned into silence, except for the 3 Hawaiians that were sitting in the room, and they were empowered by that. So, yeah. And not long after that, I was a groupie. I followed these guys all around. I went to, I think it was a celebration of the arts in Kapalua, and so I wanted my children to see and hear. Yeah, but I didn't think I would be someone who is actually chanting the chant today. Yeah, it gets a little, it hits you in your na'au sometimes when you think about time, because that's what the Kumulipo is. It's timeless. It's circular. It's a circular time that constantly reminds us about who we are and where we come from. If you ever need an answer to any question, this is one of the wows I'll talk about later. Yeah. Every question you would ever have can be answered in the Kumulipo. That's my takeaway, my big takeaway from that. So very honored to sit here and be amongst these four powerful people. You don't see Kalani, but he's here too. And so I'm just very honored to be here. And wish you all aloha.
Mahalo. He's a very good writer, yeah? Leave you with the punchline right up front.
I was trying to make Kapono Ai older than me. I was like, when you was born? Because maybe you next. He was like, no, you're older than me. Yeah, just to be clear. Mihana. Aloha mai kako, no mihana okala. No palolo mayo. And it's cool being here in Manoa. Because we see ourselves in Palolo as being very different from Manoa. But a lot of my life I spent at UH Manoa. I got ma'a to this area, and so mahalo. Kelohi for inviting us up onto the Punahou campus for this, and all of you. My ohana, I was born and raised in Palolo Valley. My father's ohana comes from Hawaii Island, from both Waimea and on the other side of the island, to all throughout actually Hawaii Island. My mother's ohana is from Maui and then settled here in Haleiwa. And yeah, mahalo nui. I got nervous all of a sudden. And I'm never nervous.
Yeah.
What's the question again? Kumulipo. And all that. You know, so in 1999, my Kuleana ala kalamahaini, we went to Whipsy together, and this was right after the Liliʻuokalani movement had started previous in 97 and 98. And so Whipsy happened in 99, and all we call them the big dogs, all the Kumu at the time, Tupua, Kanahele, Hokulani Hopadilla, Lena Ala Kalamahaini, and Alicia Smith at the time, and Vicky Holt Takamine. You know, Whipsy was the next thing on the agenda after Ilio was doing its actions at the state capitol. And so when we went to Hilo, and Tiala said, "Oh, Mehana, you gotta come with me. We're gonna listen to the Kumulipo." Now, at that time, I had just heard about this was something. Of course, I was around Hawaiian, studying Hawaiian things, but you know, it was something that was like over there. It was like this big thing that was over there. It's a little archaic. I never heard it. I heard parts of it. Realized later that throughout my life, I'd heard parts of it in the hula world, but not heard it. And so me and Auntie Ala went. We sat in the front row of Kamuela and his Haumana's presentation for 3 hours. And we were changed by the time we left. We were different. We're different people. We saw things differently. Even though many of it we didn't understand fully, we knew that we had to. Like we had to do something. We had to learn more about this, because this group of Hawaiians are standing there expressing this for hours, and we sat there enamored for hours. First time ever being able to do that. And it was so powerful that it changed not only myself, even Auntie Ala, even my Kumu, who was already well into her 60s at that time, going into her 70s, who had experienced the world and the hula world and the Hawaiian world as a pure Hawaiian woman. You know, this was a new thing for her too. And so we experienced this together, and mahalo Kamuela for having taken on that task. Then in 2002, in prep for their 2003 hoʻike at Iolani Palace, I was asked to MC the event, and that was life-changing too. I felt like part of the team at that point. I was like, I'm getting closer. Like, one day I will chant the Kumulipo too. But this is the steps you gotta take. First you watch it, and then you do some task around it, and then one day, Mehana, you too can chant the Kumulipo. They'll allow you in the club with everybody else. Guess what? I made it. But it really inspired. I'm known more for chanting than I am for hula. Even though I unikied as a Kumu hula in 2009, like that's what people know me for more so. And so when we got the invite to come together and do this, it was just like, I've been waiting for this moment, for how many years? But I had no halau at that point. I had been putting that off, making myself busy for years after Uniki. And it was at that point, because of Kamuela and Kalani's getting us together, that I said, I got to start halau. Like, I have to start teaching now. I have to start sharing. I have to start creating the experiences that my kumu, that all of our kumu kind of created for us to be able to live our best Hawaii, and share that with the world, share that mana with the world around us, to kind of affect it in different ways. And for us, like in Oli, like our voice is that changer. It reaches out to you. It's going to grip you. It's going to touch something inside of you. And so I started halau last year. Right after we had that meeting, I was like, okay, I got to start halau. They don't even know this mo'olelo, actually. We haven't had time to really talk about this, but it was because of that invite. I was like, okay, mihana, you got to get a group together now and do this. And we've been, going through this for the last year. So it's been a powerful catalyst from when Kamuela did it in 1999 at Wipsy in Hilo, under a tent, with, there's a few dozen people hearing it and being inspired. And now I really honor that moment, because after that, I know in the early 2000s, Halau Kumana did 2 ho'ike. They split up, the first 8-wa and the second 8-wa. So any Halau Kumana graduates in here, aloha to you folks. There was like one of the first charter schools that I knew of that took on that task. Now you see books out there about it, like written for school-age children. You see videos out there about it. And I would say, if not for the vision of Kamuela Chan at that time, and his kumu, and Tipuama, and the Kanaka Ole Ohana, who have put out various teaching tools out there. They have the chant on CD and stuff like that. If not for that learning system, today we wouldn't. I don't know where we would be with that. And so much honor to the work that Kamuela them have done, and those first 6, 7 people. How much was?
Yeah, we had 6 people then. 6 people doing this whole thing.
And they're like real Kanaka. They're like people that we know. And 6 of them did this, what now almost 60 people will do on Sunday. 66 of us will do on Sunday. Only 6 of them did. So like so much mana in those early years of the Kumulipo, and
when we had black hair. When we had hair.
When he had hair. Yeah. So yeah, that's my origin story and connection to this, and just so happy that, Kamuela, again, your request, yours and Kalani's request, started a whole group of new haumana who are learning mele oli first, and then we'll learn hula later, but we'll start with the oli first. But mahalo to you.
Ai, velina mai ki aloha ia kako a pau aloha mai kako. Wau iho no ka pona ai, no palolo mai au. Ke noho nei au maka ʻāina o maui nui o ka malala walu ki e manawa. Me ku uohana, me ku uhalau. Ano ha'alulu wau ke ike ana ia o kou ike ia la kala mai. I better just that chanting. So, I go tell you a little more of how I got introduced to Kumulipo. This is back then when they had a festival called Hakumele Ohana. And back then, it was run over at the manager's house up beyond the store up in Hanatown. And it was a summer, and the Hakumele Ohana was being done. And chanters from around Hawaii would participate in this in this particular event where they recreate oli and they come back the following summer to go ahead and showcase the oli they created. And so this one summer, I forget exactly what the year, maybe 94-ish or 95, Halau Kekuhi came driving up in 2 vans. Out came 6 individuals in each of the vans. And they walked up into the pai or the mala area, and they started Kumulipo. And 2.5 hours later, they walked without saying anything back into their van and drove away. That was my first introduction ever
It's a
to
Kumulipo
Kumulipo.
flash mob, sounds like.
Yeah. Papa Lake was up on the lanai, trying to explain to everyone that what they just witnessed was probably something that they wouldn't witness again. And it was one of those, if you were there, you were lucky. And it's kind of this moment now, coming on Sunday. If you're there, we're fortunate. That's my first introduction to Kumulipo. And then when he went go call and ask and say, hey, what you think? I was like, you nuts. Crazy. I didn't tell it to him like that, though. I was like, okay.
He didn't answer my call.
Yeah.
He never responded back to my text.
So I remember having a conversation with Kalani and having a conversation with Kamuela about this endeavor and thinking to myself, how can I even think about this when I don't have a reference point? And so I recalled this reference point back in Hakumele Ohana, and what it made me feel. And I think what it jarred in me was how much more can I push to learn? How much more can I push student to get involved? And so took the challenge about a year ago, starting to teach my homana each of the va, because I didn't know which va we were doing at the time. And then I think we got up to, 4, va 4, and then we started discussing as a group, which va you're going to take. And so this coming Sunday, you're going to hear amazing chanters giving off their interpretation of each of the va. And that is the specialness of this particular event. You get 66 different voices that are now coming to the Kumulipo, and very much in different age ranges, from Opio to Maku and Kupuna, and very much different skill sets. But what's amazing about this is this kahua being built, that hopefully in the next few years you get another 66 and another 66, and it just keeps building. I would love to be able to hear it one day, where whoever began that kahua at such a young age and go through their experiences of learning Kumulipo and be able to deliver it on the grounds of Iolani Palace by themselves. Mm-hmm. No pomp and circumstance of people, but look up at that right window of Iolani Palace and just offer that leo ho'okupu. Reminding ourselves that it was Lili'u that sat in that room, wrote that mele for all of us to be able to understand it, and for us to be able to return that to her, to our lahu, and to all of our community. Mm-hmm. That, I think, when we get to that point, it'll be a space that we can all enjoy. So come Sunday, if you're there, mikai, fortunate. I remember there was a question, how do you convince somebody come? I don't need to convince them. No, come. Yeah? You there, you fortunate. Oh yeah, ihola, kalame.
Mahalo nui. Mahalo the mo'olelo of the intersections to the Kumulipo matter, because we would like to encourage Ikeia Po, if this is your first introduction to the Kumulipo, you're welcome. If you've seen it before, we're glad to be part of the mo'oku'auhau of your engagement with the Kumulipo. But I think now we want to move into a space where we offer each of you a moment to maybe identify within the Kumulipo one of those, a few lines that have a haʻawina or that tug at something in you that has been maybe a moment of reflection that you'd like to share. And feel free to perform any piece of that and have a discussion. After each person shares maybe the mana'o that you have, we'll open it up to the kumu to also comment on those specific va of the Kumulipo. Yeah? So I'll put you on the spot this time, but anybody can hold mana'o. Who let go first? Right down the line. Mahalo.
Oh no, I thought we would go that way.
Yeah, you can tell him if you like it.
No, I'm going to get it over with. Okay. Our group, well, first of all, I have to say thank you to Kelly Rachel and Stacy Ka'aua, who are real kumuhula. So when these guys asked me, do you have students? I forced my family to come. So they had no choice. And then I asked those two individuals if I could borrow some of their students. So I'm so very grateful that 8 of them are coming from Hilo, and there's 3 of them coming from Maui. Some of them are in here already, so thank you so much. I just wanted to acknowledge that. I forgot to do that earlier. Our group was tasked to, I don't know if I can't remember, this was a year ago. I don't know if we chose or if we were voluntold, but when Kamuela asked me if I wanted to participate, I said, I want Va'umikumaha, because it's the star section. And, similar to others speaking about, it's there, you want to know it. You just don't do it. Well, this would force me to know it now and learn the chant. So, Va'umikumaha is all about stars. But I was given Va'iha, which are where the turtles and the lizards are. Originally, that's what I thought, egg layers. And then Va'eiva, which is the drama llamas. That's what I call the drama lanis. So I forced my family to do that. So they're doing the drama lanis with their squeaky voices because they're all preteens. So it's kind of cute because that's kind of what's going on, right, with the whole dramas. And then what else do I have? 14. Yeah. So anyway, part of our process was to go through a thing called Papakumakavalu, where we take apart the words, not the words exactly, but just kind of look at all the different translations, because that's one of the things the Kumulipo is known for, is the multi-layer, advice that it's giving you. You could see it as someone who is a healer and go and find your answer. If you're a teacher, you can go and find your answer. If you're a leader or a politician, you can find your answer. It's sort of written in a way that it gives you agency to learn from the actual words themselves, because it's just filled with kauna and metaphor and a little bit of exaggeration and a little bit of imagery. Well, lots of imagery. And so when we started with Va'iha, we sort of broke that apart. And so this is the big wow moment that I had. Because we looked at you guys know that there's like 13 different versions of the Kumulipo. Yeah, this is my gift to you. There are 13 different versions of the Kumulipo. Okay, so, which is great. So when anybody ever questions you about something, you just say, what version are you looking at? Yeah. Anyway, okay. So that's what we did on Va'iha, because it's not an easy Va to understand. It's like, well, there's all these little turtles coming out. What's going on with these turtles? Why are there lizards? What's going on? Why are there poisonous things? Why are there, things that poke you? And why are there, what's going on? What's going on? And then we found some of the older versions. And there's a section in there that says, Hanau kanaka ho'olua hua. Hanau kanaka ho'olua hua ho'ohua lau I ka poa e ne ia ne la ho'oku'uku ia ne la ho'oka'aka. Thank you. Ho'oka'aka wale ke kai hanau ka po. Right? Okay. So this kanaka ho'olua hua, and I was like, light bulb. This is the first kanaka that is born. I thought it was la'i. Right? That's what I thought. But in Va'iha, it says hanau kanaka. So I thought, okay, what do the other versions say? Well, the other versions say that hanau he wahine ho'olua hua ho'ohua lau I ka poa ene. Okay, well, women don't have, well, ho'olua hua can be translated as wrinkled testicles. Okay? It says hanau wahine ho'olua hua. And I thought, wait a minute. I think they're talking about hermaphrodites. Or they're talking about people who are choosing what they are. Right? So I was like, whoa, that's kind of, again, any question you have, the answer is there. So it's inclusive. That's what I learned. It's inclusive, the ho'olua hua. It also means to give birth, well, to lay eggs too as well. So for me, that's actually one of the takeaways about that if we would go into some of the things that they're talking about, it's this person who bridges the two sides by choice and sometimes moves forward, sometimes moves back, but then is meticulous enough to go through all the different plants that start this idea of ritualization. And they start to ritualize a lot of those things, those animals, those plants. They're all asexual. They're all hermaphrodites. They can be male sometimes and can be female other times. And some of the plants are able to make their own babies kind of thing. So it was kind of this big aha moment in that we're inclusive, even in our chanting. And that anybody can find a way to connect in the Kumulipo because there's a section for you. So I was going to ask my gang if they're here, if they want to chant from the beginning of Ba'eha until we get to the Ho'olu'ahua section. So I don't know where they all are. So I know I heard the voices. Yeah, I heard them over there. They gave me lays, so now again forcing the family. I can run over there.
Mahalo, mahalo.
Others? Oh, yay! Okay. Mahalo, mahalo. Thank you. Put them on the spot. But yeah, so it's the kaula maku'es, the kaulas, those people who are born as prophets, are possibly those who live in both worlds, right? That's what it says. So that's where I'm going to end that. So thank you very much.
So, in trying to understand the Kumulipo, especially the first 7 wa, which are in the time of Po, time of darkness, I was trying to look for some kind of pattern to see how is one thing related to another. And there's something that's not said, but there seems to be a pattern that I'll share with you. And this was like my kind of aha moment. So in the first wa, there's the introduction. There's this idea of fresh water, and the last part of it goes, "Okani huawai akua kenda, okali nakawai ho'oluai, okahuli ho'okawowo honua, opaya ika madama." So they're talking about the fresh water, and fresh water being the food for those creatures that were born within that wa. And I thought to myself, when we talk about fresh water, we talk about Kani. Because by the second wa, they start introducing all the fish. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, okay, this is kind of interesting. So they're talking about fishes. So fishes are in the ocean, and the ocean is related to Kanaloa. Yeah? Although it doesn't say Kanaloa, it doesn't mention Kani, it doesn't mention Kanaloa, but we know there's his realm. And there's an interesting line that talks in the very end of that wa that says, "Okikaina palawa I kaine kuili o haʻawina kamoana, o ka opule kailoloa." The palawa, symbolic of the chiefs, are moving out into the ocean playfully. You know how they breach the surface and they're playing on the surface? They're followed by the opule fish. The play on the words of pule indicating their kahuna. So there's this indication that there's this migration going on outside. And then there's this one line towards the end, o kahauli vale kapo. So can you imagine, as they're sailing away, what they're seeing as they look back at the land, the land is getting darker and darker as they're sailing away off into the night. And so I thought to myself, wow, that's really nice. That's like, this, if we're talking about the theme of migration, even though they don't really say it, but there's this theme of migration about them moving out. By the third wa, they introduce the birds. And and so what is it about the birds? The birds help to navigate. They're used as a navigation, right? So they're helping this group of travelers find the land. By the fourth wa, where she's talking about, when she comes upon, what are they doing? They're crawling. They've arrived at their land, and they're crawling on the land, and they're scratching out their livelihood. They're making a home in this new land. By the fifth wa, they introduce the Pūkoʻa and all the many characteristics of the Pūkoʻa. Now we know that the Pūkoʻa is also a kinola of Lono. So here we had Kani, Kanaloa, and now we have Lono. By the sixth wa, I think what's happened is that they introduced the iole, the rat. And what does the iole do? It goes from district to district, from fruit to fruit, and just kind of nibbles, takes a little bit. It's like you pay your taxes. Yeah, kind of like. So there's some semblance of a civilization, of a society forming, that by the seventh wa, with the introduction of Ilio, the dog, which is a kinola representation of Ku, we find there's a governance structure to their society now. So that's not something that that is written down, but this is just my mana'o according to me. But here you have evidence of what would be within the realm of Kani, what would be in the realm of Kanaloa, what would be within the realm of Lono, and what would be in the realm of Ku. But by the 8th Wa, this is kind of like my favorite, by the 8th Wa, this is where, well, humans as we know were born. And who was the first one to be born? Well, you know, all mo'okuauhau, all genealogies start somewhere, right? Our own mo'okuauhau, as far back as we can trace it, will have a starting point that we choose. This one chose to start with 3 people in particular, and that is Laʻilaʻi, who was born as a woman, Ki'i, who was born as a man, and Kani, who was born as an akua, as a god. And and that's the order in which it's listed within the Kumulipo. So this, for me, is the beginning of the mo'okuauhau on the human side. Yeah, on the human side. And from there, it's their kids and their generation, over 800, 900 generations later, comes down to Kalakaua, Liliʻuokalani, and their siblings. Is that great? Is that interesting? The other thing, too, is that we have people, I believe, in this audience, who are able to trace their genealogy through the Kumulipo. So it's not something that's, on the shelf. This is a living document for some of our ohana here in Hawaii. And that's an important thing for us to recognize. Do I have, let's see, who is here? Is Cody? Are you folks here? Okay, let's do this. Yeah. So we'll share with you Wa'evalu, because this is the part where this starts the time of Ao with the birth of mankind, or of humankind. This starts the time of Ao. Okay. What's interesting about this one too, there's a particular name in this section that we're going to do, which is Kupololiʻilialiʻimoaloʻipo. And within the 11th Wa, there are a list of titles, starting with all the Kupochi, the Polo, then followed by Polo, followed by Liʻili, followed by Ali'i, followed by Mua, and followed by the Lo'i titles. So there's hundreds of generations that follow this Kupololiʻilialiʻimoaloʻipo title. Okay? And this is the generations and generations and generations of Ali'i that we know.
O ka mau I au I are o ka mai ke au ka pō kini kini o ka mai ke au ka pō he nau māmau. Hanau ka naka o mehe nau, hanau ka naka ia wai oloni, hanau ka wahine a wai olola, hanau ka pō a kua. O ka naka I kukuku, o ka naka I mōmoi lau I ka pō māmau. Hina wale ka naka e ka kani nei, ha ula wale ka lai o ke akua, ha ere ko ke ka naka, ha ke wale ka auai, ho wani no ke au po kini, ho lai mehe ka po he nanu mamau, I ka ia lai. Ha nau lai he wahine, ha nau ki he kane, ha nau kane he akua, Hanau ka loko ka he hauna ia. Hanau ka pahua moana iha, ka wauna au ke me ko la hope mai. Kupololiʻilialiʻimoaloʻipo kona muli. O ke kanaka o la loa laua ie.
And when you come on Sunday, you're going to hear the rest of the story.
Okay, my turn. Who's in here, by the way? I want to see Jocelyn up here, Kitty Eva Anui back there. Anybody else here? Okay, yeah. I have them doing like 1,000 things. When you live on Oahu, yeah, and prep for stuff, gotta get all kinds of stuff ready. So the two of you guys just get ready. I will talk a little bit though, get you guys, get your courage, and get ready to be called upon. The wall that we focus on is on haumea. Actually, the part where Grant has is in Wa 11, which is all of us. Every halau up here has a section, because that's the one that has like 800 lines in it. So we divide it up. So Grant will share a little bit about that. But our time was spent doing 13 and part of 15. We had to give up part of 15 because it goes into Maui stuffs. And they're so dominant, them guys. They just come in and just take them away. So chief of war. I don't know. Just come to Oahu and just take all the stuff. By the way, I need to write Jason. I was like, can you move on to another part in our history where Oahu wins something? Can you please just move along, Jason? Anyhow, back to the script, Mehana. So, haumea. And from the beginning, when we first had our first discussion, it was like, and Kamala is so, gracious to us. Like, okay, so what do you want? And I was just like, haumea. I want haumea. Because my Kumu, Liliʻuokalani, had a very close affinity to this particular wa. We learned parts of it, and in 2006 we won Kahiko Night at Merimoana with a haumea chant. And that was our introduction to that. That was after we saw them do it in 1999, and Auntie Ala really focused on, start to pull stuff out of the Kumulipo and do it and pull sections out, which is very archaic, at that time, to just kind of hand grab, different parts. But the haumea section really resonated with her. And then it resonated with the rest of our halau too. So that was like a natural. Like I couldn't. I think I would have fought them guys. We would have had big beef if anybody else wanted that wa too. And of course they would have shut me down because I'm like the youngest one next to this one over here with that. But haumea was such a prominent figure and a figure in a lot of the work that I do today. And just who I am today, and how it is that I understand who I am. That wa was, and this is 13, was just particularly resonating with me. And I said, okay, this is the wa that we're gonna share out and talk about it. And haumea is familiar enough to the ear. It's not so archaic. It's very familiar to people who know anything about Hawaiian mythology. She's considered to be, in layman's terms, Earth Mother, along with Papa. And sometimes they interchange Papa Nui Hanau Moku and Haumea throughout. So it was familiar enough, but we wanted to go, okay, like what else now? From when I first started looking into it, and mahalo Dr. Liliʻuokalani Hiva too for teaching genealogy class up at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where a lot of that connection to our own genealogies today get formed for a lot of us who are in the U8 system. But when we heard it there, when Kamala them guys did it, and Auntie Ala really had a close affinity to these haumea sections, I was like, yeah, that's the first one that we're gonna do. Let's take this on. And I gotta say, so my haumea are probably the youngest in their learning of the Kumulipo, not in age, because they're all over the place in age, but in learning the Kumulipo, in practicing the art of oli out of the entirety of the group. but the layers in which they found and connect with, and the resources that we have available today are so much more vast than it was in 99, in 2003, in 2001, in Maui in 2003. That they're both lucky, and they also have an extra burden of having this wealth of information now to work from that really kind of shape their voice in this. Not only just their understanding, but their use now of their kino to be able to express this. I brought to them a different sense of oli. We have the skilled chanters, the kahuna, who their strict attention to the recitation of prayers either made or break stuff, right? It can either make or break things happening in our society. I told them my inspiration is a story about my grandmother riding on horseback with her father, coming from Waimea down to Kauai to visit his in-laws, Ohana. And as he approached their ʻāina, he started to chant out to them. This story is written in one of our genealogy books. And in the mo'olelo, a cowboy, just regular cowboy. The story is remembered and written down. He's chanting to his in-laws, and his in-laws respond to him in kind with an oli. And that was I'd been brought up in hula to understand that these functions, hula, oli, are reserved for a certain trained class of people. That's true. That is very true. And there are levels to this. But to understand that my ohana was doing this as a matter of everyday life, of understanding the world around them, changed my whole perspective on the use of oli, and how the everyman has a ability to utilize their voice to create the relationships between Kanaka and the relationships between ʻāina and the living world around us, that we all have that potential to be able to do that if we spend time on crafting our voice and what it is that it says. So the Haumea section was very resonant with me. I have majority wahine in my halau. I think there's only 4 guys putting them. They just get ordered around by all the wahine in the group. We're very Haumea people. But in that too, Haumea and the qualities of birthing, not just Kanaka, the role. I mean, of course, the men have role in that too, but to understand that the males have a function within that. And in the Haumea section, it draws that out. It takes from being like the age of being able to mate and give birth, all the way to the age where that ceases to be your function now. And now what you birth is ceremony. What you birth is wisdom. What you birth is the molds of how society gets shaped. Yeah? Was that enough of an introduction? You two guys ready? I'm going to get 2 of you guys. Is there 3 of you guys? Come down to the front, whoever it is. Oh, and Mahina. Okay, the way I organize my guys is they each have sections, so they don't do each other's. So you're just going to hear until I just say stop. Bits and pieces of what they have to offer. And Grant Keli Va'anui, whose child comes to this school. So proud Punahou parent. And then Jocelyn is doing a part in the Haumeas. Grant has a part in 11. And then Mahina Mahina, you're in 15. Yeah, Joss is in 13, Wa 13, and Mahina is in 15. So just give a sample a little bit for the audience. They're shy.
They are
Good, that's a nice sample. That was a good sample. That was just a small section of his one. Okay, Joss, you next. Good, stop right there. You know, you can see her eyeing me out, like, when are you going to stop me? She'll give me the eye. The eyes is getting more and more sharp as we go along. She's like, now do I stop? Yeah, she didn't go let her go on, like, for days. And that was the beginning of the Haumea section, or like a mid Haumea section, actually, when Haumea is now turning, and is starting to go into that part of her realization, and starts to bring in now all the spiritual aspects, and now they're all basically going to be kahuna after that. And now, Mahina. Mahalo, Mahalo, gang. They're really a shy bunch. But that part that Mahina shared, what I love about it, and this is why I think I have such an affinity to the Haumea section, is it centers Haumea here on Oahu. It talks about Haumea being in Kalihi. So all you people who live in Kalihi, yeah, be proud. Yeah, Earth Mother herself emanates from Kalihi, Oahu. That was a little bit rough for me because I come from Pololo. I'm like, Kalihi, for real? And then it talks about her, right, there's many mo'olelo, all of you guys who live in He'eia, and on that side of the island, right, claim her too, because she's all over. She go back and forth, over. Plenty lessons learned there. And that's the different sections that they were able to do for you guys. So, yeah, mahalo for letting us share that.
You know, when Kumu Kamuela was talking about structure, it came to my mind about va, erima, eono. In that va, it deals with the akua of lono, it deals with the akua of taxation, and it deals with the akua of structure. And so when we're looking at this, when I first started looking at this, I started to think about the differences of our leo and how we build structure within the leo of Oli as well. So there are different stylings, vocal stylings that each halau are very familiar with, whether it be an oli oli or kawele or different aiha'a, or very, very, styles that are very nasal, called a nolo nolo for some. And so I thought, okay, well, when I look at this, how do I go ahead and start to utilize the voices of our kupuna to create the textures of each of the va? And so when I looked at that whole introduction of Pūkoʻa, I was thinking, wow, wouldn't it be awesome if I brought one bebe Pūkoʻa to Kumulipo? You never know. But just the sound, right? Or the sounds that iole make. Or just thinking about the structure of taxation, right? When we think about it today in this Western point of view of taxation, that's luhi. But in the view of our ancestors, those are Kuleana. And so these particular va were meant for the challenge of the vocal intentions, of showcasing Pūkoʻa voices and then showcasing iole voices. They showcase the mana of that leo, of that kupuna, but they also showcase the interesting structures of the akua. And so I'll bring up my homana, and they'll share with you just a little bit of, not the whole thing, they're going to share with you the whole thing, of their section of elima eon. Helime. They shy, no, they're not shy. Helime. So I want you to listen to the nuances of their leo as they go through each of the va, and then see if you can pick out some of their differences. Yeah.
Hana pua hiba hiba iau te awa kapo kano kano ino hoai moia poia pola luni. Hana kapo. Hana kapo wa wa hiba wa kona hana kapo wa wa hiba wa la hana kapo hiba 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 hana kapo wa iau kea. Hana kapo ma kea 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 ini hana kapo wa wa uri uru ka hana kapo meo kona hana kapo wa uri uru kona. Hana kapo hera kona hana kapo lava lava kea hana kapo hoi kona hana kuru he aia kona. Hana kuru ki te kona hana kuru he mele kona hana kau kuru hana kina kona. Hana ki kene ia hana kuru kona hana ki awa kona hana kuru he kona. Hana kua he kona hana hala he kona hana ki kona hana kua mai he aia kona. Hana kuru he kona hana kau hopi kona hana ni ia hana kuele. O kana ia beluke ia lai kama olo ilo uno aina o mohala e kumai ai kai kumake mai. O make kini pele o mele ke amua o ma kini a bili kana una kapo kanoga. Ika po nera.
Ano Leila, Mehana, just as we had guessed, we are at time with 2 questions. But I do want to give each of you, and maybe no need all, but if everybody have a mana'o. I realized that we didn't really explain what the Kumulipo is, and that was a little bit by design. Because, you know, if we have time for it, my ka'i, and if not, you can Google that. But maybe maybe one last haʻawina nui. What are the big lessons? You guys are the experts. You've studied it. You've looked at the words. You've thought about it through the centuries, obviously. And as a mele koʻihonua, it's a mele of genealogy, and we have some insight into when it was done. And if you were paying attention to Kamuala's narrative about it being done in the centuries, it's really profound that the moments where the Kumulipo was being performed are profound moments. And so this is not a mele that everybody, we'll do them tomorrow. We could chant them tomorrow. But for occasions like the Queen's birthday, to celebrate things such as Hawaiian History Month, to bring people back together in terms of what it is we are remembering, when we need to remember that we have each other and that we have genealogies of humans standing behind us. And so the haʻawina nui, what are the big lessons? We've talked about educators, science educators, using the Kumulipo to teach context, biology, in a Hawaiian context. What are the other lessons that sort of stick out for the lay person in terms of studying the Kumulipo for you guys?
That the Kumulipo is happening now. It's still happening. Mm-hmm. And yes, mm-hmm. and that it'll continue to happen in the future. Therefore, it behooves us to learn the chant really well so that we can add more lines to it.
I've wanted to say earlier that I'm really appreciative to being able to be with everyone here tonight in Punahou. I was actually born and raised in Mo'ili'ili, and I've always looked at Punahou from across the street. I went to Marino grade school for the longest time, from kindergarten through 8th grade, and then moved up the hill. But it's kind of interesting that we're here in this space, because back in the old days. So, as you mentioned, when we talked about what was happening, when we know it was performed in the centuries, in between all that, there had to have been some type of mechanism or system for that to have been taught from generation to generation to generation. We know back in the old days that it were the priests. It was the priests that performed this for them. It was a sacred chant for them. And so they were the ones who learned it and performed it. With Kalakaua having written it and with Liliʻuokalani having translated it, it kind of opened the doors for us, to be able to learn it. So it wasn't just it came out of the priesthood and became something that we could all engage in. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's important. But just realizing, I mentioned this a little, it's kind of interesting that here we are, back in the old days, it used to be performed on the temples at the heiau. And here we are in the modern day Heyo. I mean, you consider it maybe a different religion, but it's still a place of worship. Yeah. And so to me, that's kind of a, I don't know what the word is to describe it, but it's kind of nice to be able to do it here. Yeah.
I never thought I'd be sitting at Punahou school talking about the Kumulipo in the sanctuary, in the church. I never thought, yeah. So we have definitely moved through time and space and politics and other things that used to shackle us from being able to learn. Yeah, so mahalo for us, providing the space to explore and push boundaries and learn without offense, without harm. Just learn like hoʻonui ʻike with that. For me, one of the things similar to what Kale said, one of the questions that popped up was like, okay, so when are we going to write the next 16 wa? Right? Because time from the birth of Kani Nui Ia Mau Mau, and even though the lessons are timeless, they're like our, they're like our lessons that we that we use in any academic setting, in any kind of learning environment. Yeah, like when do we start adding to that? And I think we can. We can start adding and going to have 11 different versions. Like I have now, going to have different people contributing, going to have competing ideas of what our modernity presents us with and challenges us with, and that's a good thing. I think we think that we can't bring the past lessons of how it is that we shape and create knowledge systems forward, like it's so sacred that it must just stay there. It's like, no, the sacredness means that it's in our everyday, right? Like the church, this is our everyday. Our pule is everyday. Let's be a little brave. Of course, I'm gonna get putties from all the kumus, over here. Like, yeah, but they gotta be skilled, mihana, right? There has to be some foundation of ʻike that's behind that. Yes, and we can make the versions. Let's evolve from that time, but let's not be afraid because our world shifts and our we might think this is old ʻike, but like Kale keeps hammering in on us tonight. It's like, no, it's now ʻike. Yeah, this is now. These things are relevant now. The more and more you go through the Kumulipo, the more and more what I learned or thought I knew in 2009 when Kumulipo first did it, past that, 1999, sorry, and moving forward, whole world shift different. I was like, whoa, I don't know how I taught that. It's really this. But that's the evolution of knowledge and learning. And that's what the Kumulipo provides. You're going to pick them up, you're going to know, and you're going to learn something today. I promise you. We gave some to Keloi. Give them out somehow to people. When you look at it, you're gonna resonate with something today. And as your life grows, as your experience grows throughout life, you will add to that knowledge. Like, oh, that's what they meant in that. And that's the beauty, and I think that was Kale's point, that's the beauty of this type of ʻike, is that it's timeless, it's going to take us through time. But let's not be afraid to add to that wellspring of ʻike. Oh, that was such a Punahou connection. Let me think of that.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm going to shut up. Yeah.
I recall Auntie Pua Kanahele saying that her journey through Kumulipo was different 40 years ago than it is now. I think that's going to be similar to us going through this journey currently. How we look at Kumulipo now is one way. How we look at it, hopefully, if we're around in 40 years, is going to be different. And what's great about it is that particular journey of being in the current. As Kumukale was saying, that ʻike is now and present. What is it going to look like in 40 years for you? Is it going to be ever evolving? I hope we have 11 different versions. I hope there's a Maui version. I hope there's an Oahu version, Hawaii version, right?
What is Maui people? They don't stop, yeah? You guys already won 7 of the episodes in Chief of War.
Shucks, I never see them yet. You just went ruin them for me. Yeah.
Oh, spoiler alert.
But what I will say is also what Kumulipo saying about being in a halepule. Well, it's very similar to being in heiau. Heiau is just a movement of that. It's a movement of that energy and getting intertwined into that. Yeah, that's what you do in a halepule. Yeah, you make sure that that pule is dedicated to something so they can get intertwined into it. And you are part of that. And so to be here listening to about Kumulipo in a heiau, hiki no. I hope that when you go to hale ali'i o ʻiolani in that heiau, that you are intertwined with all of those amazing voices and all the thousands of people that will enjoy those voices that evening. And look up to the right corner of that room. That ali'i is looking straight back at all of us. It's going to be amazing. So come, hele me.
Mahalo. I know we're over time, and if you do need to leave, please leave. Stay if you can.
Did you just kick them all out, Kelohi?
I said if you need to. But I do want to open the floor for maybe just a couple of questions, because I hate to let our Kumu run out of here without getting a few of those questions in. So are there any questions that we have in our audience? Anybody want to ask about process, about anybody want to know what the Kumulipo is? No? Mahalo.
I was interested to hear you refer to the stars, and that there was a particular powerful law of talking about them. And then it went by, and some of you elaborate on what was so important about that particular law.
Okay, mahalo. Did everybody hear the question? She was struck by Wa'umikumaha, which is about stars, and she would like me to expound upon that because we didn't really talk about it. So Wa'umikumaha, it sort of is at a place, it comes after Haumea, when they sort of categorize life all around them and put them in little, organized little cubicles so they can figure out the world. This is what happens, right? We become very complex. But Wa'umikumaha is about the celestialization of ritual. And so celestialization, I know you're like, oh, that's some big word. You get on top of your phone, Googling them. But what that means is in order for you to put some ceremony and ritual into something, you add a star to it. A classic example is the story of Jesus. And how did the 3 wise men find him? How was it? What was it? What did they do? Yeah, exactly. So this is something that is repeated in not just that particular religion, but other philosophies too. And Wa'umikumaha talks about that. And then the evolution of learning the stars in different ways. And the first pass-through talks about basically navigating, moving around. And then the second pass-through, they talk about the same stars again, but this time it's about keeping track of time. So in that, to me, what I hear when Wa'umikumaha is happening is they went from navigating to settling. Because once you settle somewhere and you understand stars, that means you have religion now, which means you have people who have studied the area, which is what Wa'umikumakolo is about, and now they understand their place in the society and where they come from. So that's... Yeah, please come and watch and listen because they're going to be pointing to where the stars are located in the sky. So yeah, please come.
You talked about how you perform it during momentous occasions or once a century. So as a Hawaiian at heart, a non-Kanaka, I'm wondering, why is it rare? What are the obstacles that you are facing? Is it the length, the 2,000 plus lines? Is it the memorization? Is it the interpretation? What are the obstacles that keep us from hearing the Kumulipo more often?
That's a good question.
You know, I don't think there's any obstacle, but there is a challenge, and that's the challenge that we've taken up. It's there, and like I said, you know, King Kalakaua and Queen Liliʻuokalani opened the doors for us to be able to do this. So it's not so much obstacles, but it's more the challenge that when you're ready to do it, you do it. You take that challenge up. That's my mana'o.
I'm not going to lie, the baka hot. It takes a certain mindset, right? When you're thinking about the challenge of studying 2,100 lines. And I'm glad that we get to hear all of the different interpretations of each of the haumana. Because what it does, it drives me as a kumu to want to go ahead and learn that ba that they're learning, or they learned. I remember Kumukalani saying, oh, you know, next time we do them, we're going to take somebody else's ba. Oh, we're going to do them again. Okay, you know, but what that does, it challenges us as Kumu to go ahead and see what others are doing and figuring out which ones we want to do next and get our haumana excited. Yeah, excited. Volunteer them that they're going to do them. Yeah. But yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. And anything worth doing, you go get them. Go get them. Well, you know.
Mahalo. We got one more Nino in the back over there, I think. Oh.
That wholly are reserved for a certain class of people, and yet you decided to see how everyone could use their voice to connect to it. And I even graduated this school, danced hula 6th grade onward, did Kiko in competition with dancing hula, and I love hula and learning more about Hawaiian, even though I'm not Hawaiian myself. And I'm Filipino and I'm from Makua, but I am, you know, in the plantation culture, but I'm not Hawaiian. And so I wonder, for those who are not Hawaiian and may or may not have the ability to engage and become Lili, which I know you don't have to be wanting to do, how can we connect with this text and the sacredness of this text? Is the interpretation meant to be for all to do, or are we meant to learn from Kumu because of that sacred line of what the lines actually mean? Mahalo.
Yeah, mahalo for that question. I don't know how to share that with everybody else who might not have heard that, but maybe through the answer we'll get to some of that. And I'm going to actually talk about something that Kale does in a little bit, but thank you for that. First of all, I think the ʻike that's in this text can save the world. Yeah, like I think there's ʻike, and I think all cultures have, by the way, intelligence that, if just paid attention to, can really help us in the world. Now, being able to do it, whether you're Kanaka or non-Kanaka, Kale, what do you call it? You call it radical aloha. Radical aloha. No, so, over the pandemic, Kale started, I'm going to talk about you now, started a online papaoli. And she did it with the fierceness of what she termed it. And I've heard other people use the two words together, radical aloha. But in that sense of radical aloha, like we need these pule at this time. So it's not necessarily your genealogical tie that places you, or only you can do this above that. But it's what we have here in Hawaii can really save our world. The ʻike that's here, the practices, the perspectives that's here. I might be misquoting your radical aloha, but it is this chant too is part of that powerful essence that, like, we almost cannot keep it locked in. Now, there are a certain group of people that will take it with the fervor and take it beyond and learn the layers and at different times in their life peel back different layers and different ʻike that comes out of that, right? That kind of study, right? That will go into that. But I was born and raised on the island of Oahu. Born and raised, and I say that because all these guys that come from the outer islands, they're so proud they come from the outer islands and their kuʻe-ness, you know, from those like Hawaii Island, yeah, you know, and Maui, and, you know, all the other guys, and the Kauai, the unconquered ones, you know, all the things, right? And then Oahu, we just like get pollution and crime and, you know, population and all that. But really, I am shaped by the challenges of a people's homeland, and the things that put pressure on the Kanaka to keep the medicine that we have here in Hawaii, our chant, our actual natural environment, the way we see the world, the way we behave towards one another, right? All that medicine that we have, that we know Hawaii is unique. When we travel the world, we know, okay, Hawaii, yeah, we're a little bit different, you know, that's our law. But being born and raised here in Oahu, I have a more kind of like this has to be medicine for the people that call Hawaii home somehow, in order for the less than 20% of the Kanaka whose ancestors fertilized this land and grew its food and created the understanding of that we live by here, that in order for us to live here, we need more people, just a population of people, to understand that specialness. And the wisdom is in our chants. The wisdom is it's not even, thankfully, to these people who spend their life bringing out that wisdom, like culling from all those archaic words and meanings, really pull it out. Like there's wisdom there that helps every single one of us that live in Hawaii to see the world, to behave differently, right? That's why I always say, lucky live Hawaii, yeah? And more people like come live Hawaii because they see that specialness. They feel it when they come in. They may not know how to explain it. But because of all those things, like the door is open now. Different kumu will choose who their haumana are. And again, because I'm born and raised on Oahu, I was born and raised in Palolo Valley at a time where Palolo Valley in town in the 968 zip codes had the most Hawaiians, even more than Papakolea. Right? They had more blood quantum than us, but we had more of us than them. We could have took them in one football game in Kaimaki against Roosevelt. That's all I'm trying to say. Right? But I come from a place that was very Hawaii. In urban Hawaii, I grew up on hip hop. I grew up with gangs. I grew up in housing in that time, but we were still Hawaii. We had a river that flowed that my ohana used to go into. We don't go in anymore, but that ran straight through Palolo housing. Right? We still had kupuna in Chiata Valley that spoke Hawaiian. You know, we still had kumuhulas that lived in the valley. Of course, we was in the 70s and 80s, we didn't pili to that. But my point is, I let you guys go. Sorry. Welcome to the Mehana Talk.
Yeah.
By the way.
Gotta lower your kite.
Wrap it up, Mehana. Wrap it up. Yes. Those that want to have a Hawaii that brings out the best of Hawaii, we have to share more of what those lessons are so that you're able to navigate the Hawaii that we all want to live in today. And I believe, and this is why I do what I do, it is grounded in the words of like the Kumulipo, in our practices such as hula, in the paddling community, in the Lua community, in all these communities of people that carry on the philosophies of balance of our natural environment, right, of a strict code of how it is that we live as community, right? Those are all implanted within our cultural practices. And for our survival here in Hawaii, in a world that's so chaotic nowadays, I think we have something special. We get chance. We get chance. Yeah. So mahalo for that question.
Do you still have your question? I saw a little Opio hand over here, so I just want to give one. There's another 20 minutes, everybody. Quickly, everybody, quickly.
I'll go try to answer that one. No, I want to pick that is kewa kamai kani. You know, growing up, my dad would say, "Nana Hawaii ku'umau maka." Look at Hawaii through my lens. And if you look at Hawaii through my lens, and you'll see. I think it goes back to the other question as to we all live Hawaii, we all live Oahu, we all get responsibilities, no matter if you're Kanaka or not. Yeah. And so that being said, that Kuleana that we take is one that we carry on with much pride, with much aloha, and with not being afraid of pushing that boundary forward. Yeah. So I will challenge this, that because you live Hawaii, because you live Oahu, that you take the opportunity to look at Hawaii through the eyes of those ancestors. Yeah, this is your home. You only get one Oahu. How that looks like in your next 40, 50 years, that's part of your Kuleana moving forward. Oh, you know. Yeah.
Can I also add too, and it's something that Mihana touched upon, that for us in our generation, it's really our Kuleana to be able to create these opportunities for the next generation. And I'm looking at all of you folks with the gray hair. It's our Kuleana to be able to bring these opportunities forward. And so, let's do it.
Mahalo nui. We'll get another opportunity to mahalo our kumu, but we are so very honored to have been able to host the panel. We hope you get a chance to talk story with our kumu after we sort of let everybody go. But I wanted to invite up one more special guest this evening, and that is one of our haumana alakai o ke kula, Keia o Kaya Keoholua Smith. And she just wanted to share a little bit about our mea'ai tonight before we close.
Aloha oau o Kaya Eleni Keoholua Smith, o ka papa iwa ka lua kumo'ono, no kane o he mai au, he haumana au o Punahou a o Hawaii hoʻi. I am a Hawaiian Language 5 student, and it is inspiring to me to see the language and the culture alive in our community. The Kumulipo and our role in hosting tonight's event really uplifts our ʻike Hawaii. Through our learning of the Kumulipo and making the food for tonight, I feel grounded not just in my own heritage, but in the heritage of this place we all share. In collaboration with our Kumu and our community members, our Kekilohana senior course, Cook Your Heritage, incorporated ingredients mentioned throughout the Kumulipo, such as pa'akai na mea ulu o ka ʻāina, moa, kukui, limu, ia, a me o pai. May this mea'ai complete tonight's event by engaging you all in a full sensory experience of sight, sound, feels, senses, and taste, inspired by the Kumulipo. E pūpaʻakai kākou, aloha nui.
Hoʻi, iaʻi tomoku, kahai naka, ke kaulana ai nei wāhi.
Entertainment by Kani and friends. We hope you enjoy the mea'ai, the music,